Hello, everyone. Can I invite the panelists, the guest speakers, and the children to join us here at the table? Roy and Yaru. And can I invite everyone to come forward in the seats here? We are going to be live streaming, and the event will be recorded. So we would like to get all the audience sitting around here, if possible. Okay, thank you so much. My name is Arelis Bellorini, and I am the Senior UN Representative for World Vision, based here in New York. I would also like to introduce my colleagues from Save the Children and from Child Fund, Wongle, sitting over there, and Martin. Where are you, Martin? There you are. Who are the three of us together with my colleague Margie Simon. Have been putting together this event. But most importantly, I would like to thank the young leaders who are with us, Roy and Yaru, who have traveled from Cambodia and from Solomon Islands to be here in New York. It's the first time that they come here. And in that route, I also like to thank my colleagues from World Vision Cambodia, sitting over there, and my colleague from World Vision Solomon Island, sitting over there. They have come together with the young leaders. So thank you so much for your presence here today. One thing that I would like to first start with is that Save the Children is present in 120 countries. World Vision is present in over 100 countries. And Child Fund is present in 70 plus countries. So between these three organizations, and the three of us are working in very rural communities. So between the three organizations, you have thousands of communities where we worked in all of these developing countries. And in many, hundreds of those communities, we have children and young people like Roy and Yaru, who are very active in their community, who are change makers. And that is why we wanted to have this event today focused on children and young people as change makers. During this week, across all of our offices in World Vision, we are having an event on change makers. So children who are active in their communities, working on several issues, and they will be sharing about that. And we wanted to invite these two young people to share with us what they are doing, particularly in relation to the theme of the week in the UN, which is the Sendai Framework on Disaster Risk Reduction. Because usually we invite children and young people, all of our organizations invite our children and young people to come during HLPF or during CSW, and sometimes even during the high-level week of the UNGA. But this time, we wanted to also invite them to the non-usual suspects of events for children participation, because we want to showcase and feature how they are working in their community on several issues, including some issues that we may not think that they are active. And that is why they are here today. And I want to thank our guest speakers here, the adults here on this table, because they have made the time to be here and have this exchange with you and have be part of the welcoming party of the children and young people that we have here today that are representing their communities from those two countries. And they have a lot of plans when they go back to their countries. They are planning to meet with the government, to meet with the press, and bring back to the communities what they are working on and what they did here. And from that perspective, we are also very, very thankful to the ambassador of Cambodia, the permanent representative who is here with us. I'm leaving you for last, but you are, but it's not a number. Yeah. But it's because what I want to say is that for Yaru to have the ambassador here sitting next to her, when she goes back to her community, when she goes back to her country, this is a great moment for her advocacy and for her leadership in the community. So we are really, really happy and very grateful that you are here. So without much ado, let me first, I already introduced Yaru and Roy, and I was speaking about the change maker social mobilization that we have this week. We have over 250 young people participating in that social mobilization of the change makers. And it's great that we are also able to have this event here in New York. For your information, this event is being live streamed and it will be recorded, and we will be posting it in the WBI YouTube channel, so that you have that information. So without much ado, let me just go very quickly over the program that we have today. We are going to be watching a video message from Dana Vuzdushia, who is our global lead on advocacy and external engagement in World Vision. We will be listening to our keynote speakers. The keynote speakers that today are not ambassadors and are not senior directors or senior representatives of our organizations, but it's the two young people that are with us today. We will also have another keynote speaker, that is the ambassador of Cambodia. And we will also listen and watch a message from two young people who are not able to be here present today, but they were also planning to come, but unable to. And they pre-recorded a message for this event today. Then our guest speakers, Meg Gardiner, from the Secretary General from Child Fund Alliance, Andrew Hassett, the Director of Communications and Advocacy of the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children, Paloma Escudero. Many of you may know Paloma as well. She's the Special Advisor for Climate Advocacy at UNICEF. And Pablo Espiniela, Chief of Staff of the Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary General on Violence Against Children, Ms. Najat Mala. So thank you so much to our guest speakers for being here with us. So without further ado, let us watch the video message from Dana Vuzdushia.
Distinguished participants, esteemed young leaders, it is my privilege to open this important event today. Special month around the world for our global campaign Face the World to End Violence Against Children, and we affirm and celebrate the advocacy of children and young people as change makers. We celebrate their contribution and leadership to end violence against children by implementing changes in policies and practices at the local, regional, and global level. So during this side event, on the margins of the UN high-level meeting on the midterm review of the implementation of the Sunlight Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, we will hear from Roy and Yaru and other children about their actions to make communities a more resilient place to disaster so that they can protect children and their families. And maybe it's not always obvious, but we know from evidence that there are strong dependencies between climate change and violence against children. Natural disasters exacerbate poverty, insecurity, and displacement, and limit children's access to not only education, but also other basic services. And all these factors put children at greater risk of violence. They lead to increased rates of child marriage, child labor, child trafficking, or exploitation, among many other forms of abuse. So I will say it again, addressing the issue of violence against children requires a multi-sectoral effort for all stakeholders. Preventing and responding to violence requires sustained political will and a firm commitment to sufficient investment and resource allocation to implement the proven measures. And let me highlight that in this process, everyone wins if we partner with children and young people, because they continue to be both one of the most vulnerable groups to natural hazards and the secondary impacts, including violence, but also such an amazing social resource for change. So like today, we must hear and amplify children's voices to meet their needs, protect their rights, and integrate their innovative solutions, because they are change makers. So I invite you now to listen with open hearts and minds to these young advocates, and I thank you very much for your attention.
So virtual thank you to Dana, who will probably be watching the recording of this event at some point next week. And without much ado, let us first hear from Yaru.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency, distinguished guests, Roy, friends of children, and young people. My name is Yaru. I am from Cambodia. Before we get started, I want to ask you guys a question. Do we all need to protect the children? Maybe your answer is yes, but some people in my community have another point of view. Before I joined World Vision Youth Cup, I saw some children who were being abused by their family members physically and mentally, and it was considered a really normal thing in our community. People pass by minding their own business. No one cares about violence against children. Based on the data from Cambodia, demographic health survey report in 2021 to 2022 found that children aged from 1 to 14 years old experience physical punishment, male 45.4% and female 39%. And children aged from 1 to 14 years old experience psychological aggression, male 60.4% and female 57.5%. Sadly, in the same report found that 27% of adult respondents answered questions about child discipline believe that physical punishment is necessary to raise children. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a youth club leader in my community, and in order to contribute to end violence against children, our youth club works as partner with World Vision International in Cambodia, with local authorities and facilitator teams to respond to these issues, which is the most related to child's protection through implementing community learning service projects that contributed to promote the parents' understanding regarding to the positive child discipline toward the children, and to conduct the celebrating families curriculum that led by the facilitator teams to our entire community. Ladies and gentlemen, through these activities, our voices are being heard and taken into account. The commune council and also the police officer are also engaged and also supported to conduct awareness raising to the community people and to children regarding to positive discipline and risk-taking behavior to all of my 23 villages in my community, reaching over 15,000 people, including over 12,000 children. Moreover, after engaging in those activities, I was also selected to become the student council leader in my school. With that, I've got a chance to expand my knowledge and experiences throughout the work with the school directors and the teachers to establish the school policy to avoid negative discipline toward the children and also the students. And now the policy is in place to apply at our schools. By the way, at the national level, the government of Cambodia is also committing to end violence against children. Even though the governments, NGOs, and other relevant stakeholders are committing to end violence against children, yet this issue still exists. Therefore, I would like to call for all of the stakeholders, decision makers, and global leaders to come together to solve this problem urgently. It will prevent a long-term effect. If we all work together to solve this problem, it will stop the violence from generation to another generation. Today, in this event, on the margin of the UN high-level meeting on the midterm review of the implementation of the Sendai framework for the disaster risk reduction, I would like to bring all of the children's voices, not only from a country that could not be here with us today, but globally, to all of the world leaders and everyone that being here, including the people in the life. I want all of you to focus on these important points that I'm going to present, and my key ask for you are, first, please be reminded that child protection in this context of emergency and disaster must be the top priority for all the governments and all the authorities. Natural disaster can exacerbate the exposure of the children to the violence, and appropriate measure should be taken place to protect the children while also responding to the emergency. Second, we all need to reinforce the implementation of the child protection policy at all levels. Third, I want to request to all of the world leaders, including everyone, please let your ego and selfishness aside and let's take care of all the children around the world, because they need you. They need all of your love, your support, your attention, and your care in order to unlock their potential. And who knows, maybe one of them in the future will become the guest speaker here in this event. Maybe one of them will become the global leaders in the future. Maybe some of them together can become a change maker to make a better place for everyone in the future. Fourth, I would like to ask the global government to invest more resources to child protection issues and to end violence against children. Ladies and gentlemen, violence against children is not only the family's matter. It is not only the community or the authorities' matter. It is our matter as well. And I believe that your immediate action will help the children to bring their joys, new hope, and new opportunity, especially a new sense of confidence to speak up and share the voice with the rest of the world. Finally, together end violence against children. Thank you very much.
Ooh, how can I speak now? Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Yaru, for sharing the what you have shared with us and for that, that passion and that spirit. And believe me, when I hear young leaders like you, I always say to myself that I want to grow up. When I grow up, I want to be like you. And it inspires me so much on continue our work on championing children's rights and our struggle for children's rights. When here at the UN, where, as many of you know right now, one of the topics of conversation is future generations. And they're talking about future generations from the ones who have not born yet to the future. But the future generation is right here. So we need to speak on future generation from the current children that are actually making a change and bringing a change to their communities. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
Thank you so much.
And now let us call on Roy.
Your Excellency, distinguished panelist Yaro, and all of you are present today. Good afternoon. My name is Roy, and I come from a small nation called Solomon Islands, and it is located in the southwest of Pacific Ocean, northeast of Australia, and southwest of Hawaii. And it comprises of 994 islands. We belong to the Pacific continent, where we are proud to call it our home, our ocean, our land, and our common heritage. As Pacific Islanders, we value and depend upon our vast oceans, our islands' resource, and the integrity of our natural environment for very much everything in life. However, our very existence is at risk. You want to know why? Climate change. Climate change and its impact expose us, children, to higher risk of experiencing violence, and this makes our very existence at risk. The climate crisis is a human rights crisis, and this is a global issue that needs collaborative approach in addressing it. You see, the uncontrollable burning of fossil fuels and other human activities contribute to the climate change, and this is turn affected our rights. How? As stated in the United Nations Convention on the right of a child, we the children, we have the right to survive, the right to life, the right to good health, the right to shelter, the right to good food, the right to water, and the right to protection, and the list goes on. However, we do not get to enjoy those rights, and we must act now to address it. Climate change is a global issue, and we, the least developing countries, are the ones who are severely affected by its impact, even though we are the least contributor to it. To the business corporation, you might enjoy the benefit of thriving in your various business endeavors and continuously expand your factories to please everyone, but please be minded of the pollution you contribute to the environment. Please stop poisoning our islands, our ocean, and the air that we breathe. What you did to our environment brings threat to our existence. Just so you know, our islands are sinking due to the sea level rises, which cause my people to become homeless. You might say that relocation is the solution, but I tell you, to relocation is expensive, and it is even more difficult to find lands to build house. Children also suffered livelihood crisis due to the natural disasters that now happen frequently. compared to the past. Not having enough resources to support a family, then most time leads to children abuses or child abuses. If you ask me how, well, children have to travel long distance to fetch clean water. And most times, their safety is at risk. So you see, climate change has negatively impacted our lives, and safety is at risk. And this is the one main reason why I am standing here today to advocate about the climate change and the violence against children on behalf of my children in my beloved country and in the Pacific region as a whole. To conclude, climate change and the violence against children is a global issue whereby government and the corporation, they have the responsibility to take action to address its effect and also to protect humans' rights through sustainable development practices. My ask for my government is for them to provide land for our people who have lost their islands due to the sea level rise. My community could not only do as much as we can to advocate for those issues and to take precautionary measures and come up with local sustainable ways of combating climate change through building stone walls to protect our islands from king tides and other natural disasters, just to ensure that our children are protected. People in my community have also come up with adaptive ways to grow food in our islands. How? By building raised beds and growing our food just to avoid salt water. As for the global leaders from each state, my key ask for you to uphold your commitment in relation to the Paris Agreement and the Sunday framework of disaster risk reduction, and have an accountable mechanism in place to ensure that the corporation adhere to the minimum accepted level of carbon dioxide emission, which is 1.5 degree or even less. Please also remember that children protected is important. Disaster risk reduction. The children are the most vulnerable victim during such disasters. This is why protecting our planet is protecting our future. And I urge all of us here today to work together to preserve our planet and also to ensure that our voice are heard and acted upon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Roy. Thank you very much for that. It's amazing how you are engaged in an issue that is so central to the entire country, which is the risk that your island, that Solomon Island faces. It's really very inspiring as well. So thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your experience and the activities that you do in your community and the issues of concern in that relationship of between disaster risk reduction and climate change. Thank you so much. I would now like to invite the ambassador of Cambodia, permanent representative Mrs. It Sophia, to address you and share some words with our young people here.
Wow, very good speeches by our young speakers. I commend you both. Members of the panels, distinguished guest speakers, First and foremost, let me commend the hard work of the organization team from World Vision, from Child Fund Alliance, Save the Children, who are co-hosts of this important event. Changing our future. Children are taking actions to end violence against children by building resilience and addressing climate change. I hope I can be heard loud. I am very pleased to receive the invitation to address this gathering, which I think will promote awareness on the positive changes that children can make on addressing the challenges faced by their respective communities, especially their lives and their development. Thank you, Yaru and Roy, for your voice that amplifies those of all the children you stand here to represent. I heard your voices loud and clear. Points are well spoken. You want end to violence against children, all forms of violent punishment as a way to discipline children. More protection for children, more investment for children's future. Roy, you want protection of our planet. Your nation is at risk of being swallowed by the sea. Indeed, the children are the most vulnerable and deprived when it comes to various challenges such as violent, armed conflict, illegal drug and human trafficking, pandemic, natural disaster, and climate change. Either one of these negative forces can leave a lasting effect on and significantly hinder children's bright and long future ahead of them. Environmental hazards, climate change, biodiversity loss can result in multi-dimensional poverty, such as deprivation of a healthy living environment, food insecurity, lack of access to housing, lack of access to education and basic health care, as well as sanitation. And people in low-lying nations such as the Solomon Islands, which Roy just mentioned, may even lose their homes altogether with rising sea level as a result of global warming. Cambodian children in the decades of 70s and 80s, as you probably know, were among the most deprived due to civil wars, a regime of genocide, and also sanctions. I was once a child myself, and I have gone through that 40 years ago. Today, thanks to the prevailing peace and national reconciliation in my country, we now witness an impressive revival as one of the youngest nations in terms of demography. More than 65% of our population are younger than 30 years of age. With children below 14 makes up roughly 35%. For our community development, Cambodia has a saying: if you want a healthy bamboo, you need to take good care of it while still a young shoot. It is precisely to this end that my government, the rural government of Cambodia, has placed high priority on addressing the challenges and obstacles to the well-being and good development of children, including in terms of access to education, basic health care and other basic services, nutrition, adequate protection, social protection, etc., in line with the United Nations Convention on the Right of Child and its relevant protocols to which Cambodia is a party. In terms of climate change, Cambodia committed in 2020 to take a range of measures to reduce carbon emission by up to 42% by 2030. This is under our nationally determined contribution in line with the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. And as an example of Cambodia's effort to this end, to reduce the negative impact on our nature, our government has formulated our first national strategic plan on cooling. So we want to make our use of devices more friendly to our environment. We aim to lead Cambodia to a greener, cleaner and low carbon future with this new policy in place. This strategic plan was launched very recently on the 9th of March this year. Cambodia works closely with other countries and relevant stakeholders under the regional framework, especially ASEAN, and also in multilateral settings such as the Sendai framework on disaster risk reduction and management. Furthermore, to ensure an effective and sustainable effort, environmental education has been introduced into our school curriculum to educate our young folks to understand the issue of environment and its impacts, and to encourage their participation in the environmental protection, reduction of our footprint on nature, and to better adapt to climate change. I am proud to see increasing number of youth and children, including Yaru in my country, and also Roy from the Solomon, among the most active joining campaign for greener way of life and for effective fulfillment of the children's right to healthy living environment. Finally, on behalf of our government and people, I would like to express my deep gratitude to partners like the World Vision, Children Fund, Alliance, Save the Children, UNICEF, and many others for their dedication to support and to advocate for a healthy living environment and also for good development and well-being of our children. Children deserve our maximum care and attention to ensure that we have the best for future generation of mankind. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Sofia. Thank you for your strong commitment to children. It was very evident, your passion on the issues and children's rights. Really happy to see the mention to the Child Rights Convention, one of the conventions, perhaps the most convention that has the most signature and ratification amongst all the international instruments. And yes, thank you for your presence here. I just want to take this opportunity to say that the ambassador of Solomon Island is not in New York. That's why she's not here today. But she also sent her regards to Roy. We are running a little bit behind, so we are going to move on to listening to the other two children that were not able to be here with us today. Asumi is a young leader from the Philippines. Thank you to Chan Fong that's secure a pre-recorded video for her. And Maimona is a young leader from Senegal. And thank you to Save the Children for securing the pre-recorded video. So let's watch those very short videos.
Hi, I am Azumi. I'm 15 years old and I grew up in a small community here in the Philippines where everyone knows each other. I like sports and always am the new person. I am actively involved in school and community-based activities along with my peers, doing advocacy on child protection, online safety, and family emergency preparedness. I have seen the destruction of life and properties after a disaster. Children cannot go to school. Children work instead of going to school. We cannot prevent disasters, but we can minimize the effect and be safe by preparing ourselves. Preparedness starts in our home, our own family. I participated in a tree planting activities here in my community because I believe that a tree planted today can save a child's life in the future. Yes, we can do better. We can do more. We can help other children and their families during disaster. We can do this if we work together. I am calling for our leaders, policymakers, government officials to prioritize the program on family disaster preparedness. Consult us, involve us, the children. Involve also the technical experts in the planning, especially in making sure that we are protected during emergencies. Lastly, to my fellow children, let us continue participating in community activities. Let us help each other by sharing our knowledge, build positive support, and form more children. We will be the adults of the future. We help build our future.
Hello, my name is Maimuna. I'm 17 years old and I'm from Senegal. And in this video, I'll be telling you a little more about myself and the things that keep me busy outside of class. So first of all, on Wednesdays after school, I meet with my school's environmental club, Conserve to Preserve. We're a team of 6 students and 2 teachers. And during our meetings, we discuss our upcoming tree planting campaigns, or we craft things like water draining systems that we can take to the locations where we will plant the trees to help them with watering the plants. The water draining system we came up with last week was a little faulty because it overwatered the plants, but we're working on improving it and coming up with a better one. So far, we've planted fruit trees in 2 different schools in Dakar and in some public areas, and we're actually collaborating with a 3rd school right now that's outside of Dakar, and we'll be planting trees there really soon. They have their holes already dug up, so all we have to do is go there and plant the trees and spend some time with them. So our goal is not just to go to a location and plant trees. Our goal is also to teach communities about the importance of the environment, to raise awareness, and to teach them how they can properly maintain the trees that we plant for them so that future generations can benefit from them. This is why when we plant trees somewhere, we usually go back to that location to make sure the trees are growing properly, and if not, we can give them advice on how to properly maintain the trees for them to grow. Aside from the environmental club, it isn't uncommon for me to find myself at Empire des Enfants or at Village SOS, where I spend some time with the foster children that are there. I also manage an Instagram page in which I would write about issues including the impacts of the fast fashion industry on the environment, natural disasters, educational discrepancies, and a few more topics. I also did some fundraising in the past. At one point, I raised funds for the women of a remote village, and with the money, I purchased new underwear, medicine, sanitary products, and clothes for them. I also raised money to purchase school supplies for the attending orphans of SOS Village, which is basically a foster care structure that, I'm sorry about the good noise, I have a lot of voices, but it's an educational structure that takes in children who have troubled families, or who are orphans or who can't find their parents, and they basically give them shelter, food, and education for free. My proudest moment so far is the Pink Walk, which is a hike that my friends and I organized to mark the end of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we gathered around 100 people who all came to hike, and it was a really amazing moment. We were able to raise a couple thousands of dollars. I'd say $3,000. I'm converting in my head, but we raised about $3,000 that we were able to give to the Senegalese Breast Cancer Association for them to fund mammograms for women in need. Thank you for watching.
Very strong thank you to Asumi and Maimona. And I guess we had some unexpected guests in the video, so thank you to the goats as well. Without further ado, we want to turn to our guest speakers now. And I would like to invite them either to speak from the table or go to the podium, up to you. But let me first call on Meg Gardiner. She's the Secretary General from Child Fund Alliance. Strong partners, we have a very long-standing partnership. We are kind of friends in crime. And yeah, child rights champion most of your professional life. Meg, over to you.
Okay. Let's turn this on. Can you hear me okay?
Not yet. I think you've never
Okay, back one? Okay. How is that? No? I'm going to use yours. Okay, let's switch. Thank you. I want to thank Aurelis and Save the Children, both World Vision and Save the Children, for inviting us to join you today. It's always wonderful to work with our partners as we pursue a common agenda. We're convening today with some incredible young people who are highlighting their amazing work on disaster risk reduction and other activities in the face of an historic global climate crisis. When the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction was adopted in 2015, the UN reported that overall more than 1.5 billion people were affected by disasters in a variety of ways, with women, children, and people in vulnerable situations disproportionately affected. World Vision, Save the Children, Child Fund, and others are engaged in initiatives to end violence against children, a phenomenon that affects more than 1 billion children. That's about half of the world's children each year. Many of you have heard about our Joining Forces for Children initiative, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. What I'd like to say now is that we are with young people in our midst these young people are tackling some of the globe's most acute challenges, and this is amazing that they're doing this. It's sobering that they're having to tackle so many challenges, many of which are related to lack of good decision-making by adults. But we're mindful that if the planet is to survive, that we must change the world with children, our next generation of leaders. And it's our responsibility to ensure that their voices, their concerns, and solutions and dreams are heard at all levels, national, regional, and global, and in particular at the UN. So as we're reminded today, participation is one of the 4 core principles of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Those 4 principles, as we know, are survival, development, protection, on participation. Participation has always been the one that we've had to work hardest to advance. I mentioned Joining Forces for Children, which was created in 2017 by Child Fund, Plan, Save the Children, SOS, Terre des Hommes, and World Vision. And in January of 2020, we issued a policy brief, which I'll just flash, really ever so briefly, called Children's Right to be Heard. We're talking, are you listening? This was a result of several consultations that we did globally in 2020, and then a session that we had at the UN on Universal Children's Day in 2020. We were very fortunate that the Executive Director of UNICEF, that leaders within the European Commission and others all joined to listen to young children and their concerns. The report, which was based on these consultations, notes some of what I would call the hard-won gains that child advocates have made over 30 years plus since the Convention on the Rights of the Child was adopted. There's increased awareness among decision makers for the value of children's participation, which is demonstrated by an expanding number of high-level international spaces enabling children's participation. The World We Want Forum, which was instrumental when the 2030 Agenda was drafted, the UN Major Group for Children and Youth, and others. We also know that virtual consultations with young people were undertaken with governments and schools by all of our agencies here during COVID-19. Young people, again, speaking out very forcefully about their concerns, their fears, and their wants. We've seen more strategic platforms of children's clubs to enable children at all decision-making levels to be active. One of the examples is Nepal's child-friendly local governance strategy. I want to mention that when the Sendai framework was created in 2015, it was a child-friendly version of that. I have it right here in the Nepalese, just for you. I thought that was kind of cool to pull that out for today. But there's a lot that has been done. Other things that we've done, or young people, not we, but young people themselves with the help of adults, have participated in budgetary reviews and government spending and investment in children's rights. There are growing demands by children to have their voices heard in public debates and high-level campaigns on a range of issues like corporal punishment and child marriage. And there's been an increase in birth registration thanks to a lot of work by UNICEF and others. And what I understand is that the increase in birth registration of children under 5 has increased about 20% in the last years. And this, of course, birth registration is a key enabler of child participation and many other things. So as we know, the UN needs to continue to listen to both children and youth. And despite all these gains and this progress I mentioned, and alongside some of the invaluable allies we have with like the UN Major Group of Friends, which are child-friendly governments who meet at UNICEF fairly regularly, and others like members of governments who are here today, we're still concerned that children might be at risk of becoming less visible in key conversations and dialogues where key decisions are made. There's a few examples of that I'll point out. The Global Sustainable Development Report, which was issued recently, does not sufficiently address the involvement of children in achieving the SDGs. The presidential statement, the recently concluded ECOSOC Youth Forum, does not reference children. So these are a few things that we've been mindful of. Joining Forces is going to be launching a call to action on child participation this fall, something that we'll be coming back to on further, but it's like democracy, it just needs to be fostered. Child participation needs to be fostered. We can never rest on our laurels. I'll just finish with a few things about why it's important to Child Fund. First of all, we have been involved for many years, like many of our partners around the table, in advancing child participation. Several years ago, we launched our child-friendly accountability methodology, which is an approach that's reached over 9,000 children. Simply put, children are empowered and enabled to meaningfully participate in decisions which affect them. The emphasis is to participate in monitoring the performance of child protection systems and holding governments accountable. We do not ask young people to speak about their own individual acts of violence. We're talking about the systems. That would, of course, the latter would be a safeguarding risk. But child-friendly accountability is not only about lifting children's voices, it requires that children are able to participate in identifying problems and solutions, things that we're hearing today. And I did bring a copy of our methodology, which is open source, happy to share it with you. It's available in 3 languages. Lots of organizations doing great things. This is our contribution to that child participation space. And then finally, right before COVID hit, we undertook something called our Small Voices, Big Dreams global survey. Every other year, for many years, Child Fund would go out and interview thousands of children about their views on things. No surprise that we heard in 2019 that children still have many, many concerns on violence. They urged adults to recognize and respect their rights. They asked for spaces where they can feel safe. They called for an end to corporal punishment and gender-based violence. They want easier access to protection resources, and they want to be part of their own empowerment. All of this in here, again, things that you've all heard. We heard from young people like a woman, Noemi, who said, we need to be listened to, our voice is important. One woman from Central America, Elena Maria, said, every day women in this country are killed. We are disappearing at risk from extinction. We must look after ourselves. And then a young fellow from named Rampali from India said, society should give a voice to children so that they feel safe and protected. So when I think back to 2015, when Child Fund, as a member of the Children in a Changing Climate Coalition, helped produce the child-friendly version of the Sendai framework, several years later we're sitting here hearing wonderful examples from young people about what they've been doing in their own communities, and no doubt that child-friendly version of the Sendai framework has been a catalyst for some powerful work at the field level, which is good. But it's evidence for us, with the right tools, the right support and platform, children and young people can effectuate change. And we must never, ever give up. we're making progress, and there's no time to roll back. So, thank you again, Aurelis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meg, particularly for recalling the principles of children participation and the road that we have traveled on children participation, yet there is so much to be done. And it's an uphill battle, but we'll get there. Let me now pass on to Andrew Hassett, Director of Communications and Advocacy in the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children. This partnership launched almost at the same time as the SDGs, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
So we are almost also at midterm with the Global Partnership, just as the Sendai framework. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Aurelis, and to Yaru and Roy. Thank you so much for your thoughtful and powerful remarks. It's wonderful to be sitting alongside you here today. I remember actually sitting in a room not far from here about 10 years ago, and we were discussing how to best support meaningful child and youth participation. We knew it was critical for development outcomes, yet we were debating how effective children and young people can be as change makers, bringing about significant change. As activists, to influence policy, to mobilise the public, to shift attitudes and behaviours. Well, today I think there's little or no doubt, hopefully, and little debate. It's been proven time and time again that children and young people can catalyse change, large-scale change, and shape policy debates. The UN Secretary General has acknowledged the need for holistic child rights perspectives across the UN system. And that can't happen without the active participation of children. Children's perspectives have shaped the EU's strategy on child rights. And now children are being more and more empowered by civil society organisations and others, many who are in this room today, to monitor governments' implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. When it comes to violence against children and the global partnership, the government of Cambodia, along with 11 other governments, consulted and involved children in the development of their national action plans to end violence against children. And just yesterday, new research from the We Protect Global Alliance included over 200 children and young people's views on the issue of self-generated sexual material in 3 different country contexts: Ghana, Thailand, and Ireland. And young people are leading social movements and shaping policy debates. We can see that on issues ranging from climate change and voting laws through to gun violence in schools. And these are just a handful of examples. I do have a simple message for children and young people. Be confident in your vision and your agency, in your power to change the world today, to change the world we all live in today, and shape the world for tomorrow. More than ever, the world needs your energy and your ideas, your solutions on climate change, inequality, the digital world, and protecting children from violence, amongst many, many other issues. There is nothing more powerful than the authenticity of lived experience. Acting on your deepest values about the decisions that affect your lives and the societies in which we all live. And that's exactly what each of you are doing today. But perhaps even more important, you're inspiring change every day in, day out, as activists, as change makers, in your schools, in your communities, online and in your national capitals. Many years ago, a handful of civil society organisations really began to recognise the importance of child and youth participation, voice, and activism. And I think now it really is becoming more and more seen as a critical component of long-term policy development to address the most pressing issues. And it's being recognised by governments, the UN system, researchers, as well as some of the world's biggest brands. This is a major shift forward and important progress. Together we must go beyond protecting these gains. Because in some places around the world, civic space is being closed down. I've even seen recent examples of children and other activists being harassed by authorities. This is totally unacceptable. It's also a sign of your growing power. We need to take a long view of change and draw encouragement from the progress that we are making together. Because our work to challenge the systems and structures, the status quo, and harmful social norms will take decades, not years. However, what we all do today will undoubtedly change the shape and nature of what's possible tomorrow. And that's why the End Violence Partnership has been working closely with child-focused agencies to support a child and youth advisory group made up of children that represent child networks in their own countries. So that a space is created to hear and dialogue amongst children and the governance around decision making of the global partnership, and to ensure that children are meaningfully and safely supported and involved in advocacy opportunities, developing policy and recommendations, and engagement and dialogue with decision makers as is happening today. I'll finish with a quick story about Dola. Dola's 15 and she's from Bangladesh. And she gave one of the most powerful and inspiring speeches I have ever seen in my life. That was at the Together to End Violence Leaders event last year. Dola works with World Vision. She spoke on behalf of children in Bangladesh and elsewhere, alongside heads of state, government ministers, heads of UN agencies, royalty, CEOs. Dola opened the event because we really wanted to set a tone about the importance of children and child activists for the rest of the event and beyond. And Dola is an amazing storyteller, just as you two are. She told her personal story as a witness to sexual abuse and child marriage in her community. Not an easy thing to do. And in her words, as a person working as a fighter. Dola talked in such a compelling way about the impacts of violence in her neighbourhood. She talked about the importance of consulting children, of children's opinions, and sharing their lived experience. But she also talked about, and this was really interesting, that it's important because children trust each other. And they tell each other things that they may not tell their parents or people in authority, especially when it comes to the violence that many children face at home and in schools and other places. And this dialogue and support for this and creating space for this is really critical. It saves lives. This information saves lives in real time, particularly when it comes to violence. And that was the case with Dola. You can tell I learned a lot from her. So final word is never underestimate your power and the power of collective action. And remember that those that hold power will do everything they can to preserve it. Whether it's on climate change, ending violence against children or other issues. We must continue to work alongside children and young people to demand change, to successfully challenge the unjust systems and structures and conditions. Even though there is determined resistance amongst public and private power holders. And to achieve this, we must constantly be thinking about how we can reach the hearts, reach the minds, and get the support of the majority. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you for adding Dola's voice to this group of young people that are sharing their voice here today. And indeed, Dola is so inspiring. She's a role model for us. And you know, adding to the anecdote that you were sharing about Dola, when she's from Bangladesh, and when the global pandemic, COVID-19, was at the very thrust of attacking all of the citizens in Bangladesh, she was gathering smaller children in her village to give them. They couldn't give them virtual learning, so she was gathering them and helping them to learn while they were still in lockdown. And we have some videos of that, which are so amazing and so inspiring. Thank you again, Andrew, on that. Let me now invite Paloma Escudero. She's the Special Advisor for Climate Advocacy in UNICEF. A major task, Paloma, because linking the challenges of climate change to children's rights and advocating for it hasn't been an easy task. I think there is a little bit more awareness thanks to the work of UNICEF and a coalition that UNICEF is part of, together with other child-focused agencies, on raising awareness about children's rights and climate change and proposing actions. So, Paloma, over to you.
Thank you so much, and perhaps I'm going to stand up because really I would like to be talking especially to Jaru and to Roy. I think that's, thank you so much, Arelis, to you and to all our dear partners, because I would say that it's not us talking today. I want really to reassure you today that you are speaking and the world is listening. And you are speaking, and you have been speaking when perhaps people thought that with the COVID pandemic, with the Ukraine war, the attention was going to move away from the impact of climate crisis on children. But no, you kept acting, you kept speaking, and the world couldn't ignore the impact of this crisis in your lives. So I will really be encouraging you to keep active. By the way, I was amazing videos. And I'm so sorry that these amazing youth activists couldn't be here with us. Because what is the proof is that the climate agenda is not just beautiful meetings like today at the UN and others. It is your day-to-day. And you are living, experiencing Solomon Islands. I tell you, don't never get bored of thinking, oh, I have told my story so many times. The world doesn't know your world is sinking. And the world doesn't know that it is a whole nation at the moment who's really asking for our immediate help to preserve, as you say, your home, your community, your heritage, your country, your culture. You need to keep speaking up and also saying this is what we are doing. This is what we are doing in Cambodia, how you have changed your policies, how you are talking now to such a distinguished representative of the Cambodian government next to you. And I was very, very impressed to know about now the universal studies and curriculum in Cambodia on environmental studies. All those things don't come from one day to the other, come because you are there advocating day in and day out. And the world doesn't know that the climate crisis is a child rights crisis, that it is the very, very essential right to survival, to education, to a safe home, to safe water, to protection, but it is at risk. I mean, we are now hearing now today about the impact of the latest cyclone in Myanmar and in Bangladesh. Every day, 20,000 children are displaced because of the worst climate hazards. And are the right to protection of every child affected by the worst impact of climate crisis that is at stake. And today, Sophie Lee from UNICEF just told me that this morning, only this morning, it was approved that in the follow-up of Sendai, there are going to be a specific child-sensitive outcomes to be followed up. We need the same in COP. It cannot be that the Paris Agreement has not a single outcome regarding children. That cannot be. It cannot be that we are going to COP and that children and young people are only going to be members of negotiating delegations. No, they don't need to be members. They have to be negotiators. They need a seat at the table to be negotiating about the present and about their future. And we need more governments like Cambodia, like Solomon Islands and others to be real champions, climate champions for children, to make sure that children are prioritized, that communities are prepared, and that every child really is protected from the worst impact of climate change. I think we have at the moment a unique opportunity. We have the General Assembly is going to celebrate a very important summit on solutions. So I hope that your solutions, taught by you and really elevated, supported, are going to be at the heart of the UN discussions very, very soon. But yes, we have a very, very tough job ahead, Arelis, because the world is not talking about the impact of children. We are talking about investment on infrastructure, investment on energy, but people are not at the center of the discussion, and children are not at the center of the discussion. So it is very important to be not only giving you the floor, but also to support you on your local activism, on your local advocacy, because that's what makes your voice authentic, what makes your voice and relevant. So thank you so much, and I hope that when you return to your communities after, I don't know, 30 hours flights or 40 hours flights, you really re-energize and bring more and more and more of your colleagues, of your young people, knowing that the change, don't wait for New York, don't wait for the UN, don't wait for the big, big leaders in big, big conferences to make the change, because the change you are already doing it as amazing change makers. So thank you so much, and the world owes you a huge amount of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Paloma, for all of those words. And reminding Roy about the jet lag. It's the first time that they too experience jet lag, such a long travel, particularly for Roy from the Solomon Islands. Yeah, thank you so much for everything that you said regarding the crisis of children in the context of the climate change. I want to now turn on to Pablo Espinela. As I said earlier, he's the Chief of Staff in the Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary General on Ending Violence Against Children. Many of you know Najat Mala, who is a tireless, really tireless champion on children, and particularly on ending violence against children. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Arelis, and thank you to everyone, and thank you for your invitation. And SRG, thank you all for this kind of invitations. She's very sorry she cannot be with you today. She was recently in Solomon Islands, and again, she has been trying to push something that we are trying to push from the office of the SRSG, which is ensuring that the voices of children are not only heard but listened. So I think it's very difficult to say anything else after having heard Yaru, Roy, Asumi, Maimona, and then the testimony through the voices of our colleague in the Global Partnership of DOLA. It's something like a deja vu. I was in Myanmar in 2008 during the cyclone Nargis, and look at what happened this week. So all the promises again and again and again. I'm sure that if we were listening to children at that time, today we will have been in a better place. But let me share with you three things, and I think Yaru and Roy, you have said all. So I think it's absurd for us to repeat. And the messages that we would like to pass are messages that we have been collecting from the office of the SRSG from all over the world, listening to the children, sitting with the children, and learning from the children and from their experiences. And all of them, all the points, you have made it already. So I think I just want to conclude maybe to repeating them, because the only thing we can do is to echo what you are saying and trying to ensure that that this and our voices are adding to your plea. The first one is that the climate crisis is acting as a threat multiplier for violence against children. And I think we have been hearing from all the panelists, from Her Excellency the Ambassador, from everyone, how climate change is impacting on violence against children. And we are seeing violence against children increasing, and we only have 7 years left to keep the promise we made with children. I don't know how we are going to make it. In particular, if we are not listening and taking into consideration what children are telling to us. And this is why, all the issues we are seeing with the increase of trafficking, increase of intrafamiliar violence, increase of violence in all types of settings, the violence against all those children that we are celebrating here, but then they are facing a lot of challenges to the security because what they are defending, the human rights defenders, the children of human rights defenders are at risk in many of the countries. And I think this is something that we need to also take into consideration, because we cannot continue saying we need to hear their voices, we need to learn from them, your stories are amazing, but at the same time turn our faces when you are being persecuted or subjected to further violence because the messages you are trying to send. And because of this, the SRSG decided to focus her report to the General Assembly on the impact of violence on the climate crisis and how the climate crisis is impacting violence against children. And I was amazed. I just joined the office of the SRSG, and I was thinking I was coming from the field in different parts, as we call it, but with the countries, to a converted audience. And the most difficult work I'm trying to face here is to talk to the audience about the importance of having children. Youth, okay, but children where they are. And I think this is something that I hope with the great help of World Vision, Save the Children, Children's Fund, we can all together ensure that children are on the agenda. I think that that's something that we need to find a way that we pass from our lip services to something that we cannot continue arguing in every single conference, in every single summit we are having ahead. And it's not the question of the children are the future, the children are the present. And if we don't pay attention to what they are telling to us today, we are going to be in the same problems we are seeing right now, as we say, with the climate change and what is happening in many countries with the crisis. The second one is that we said that the children who bear the last responsibility for the climate crisis are among those who are hit the hardest. And our friend from Solomon Islands has put it very clear, but also in the Philippines, in many of the countries, in the Maldives, in all the countries we are seeing are completely hit by this climate crisis, the storms, the floodings, and it's repeating and repeating and repeating. And I think this is what today in that beautiful building behind me of the UN, we are glad that, as Paloma have said, there are certain points made very clear, so we don't have to continue repeating our mantra that it's important to take action about what are the impact on children of this crisis. The third and the most important is the participation. Children participation is one of the four CRC principles, the most ratified convention, and we are all applauding this. But it's surrealistic when you need to explain constantly to everyone, even in the New York audiences, how important it is to ensure that the voices of children are heard, that children have a voice and they have a role to play, because they are not the problem, they are the solution. But that is something that we are still struggling. So we need you, and we need more of you to try to help us to break that big break, which I think is being a little bit difficult. And we are only managing because you are demonstrating that this is possible. And I think that this is what we need to encourage you to continue with all the good practices that we have seen and we have heard. I mean, we have been looking at the Scouts, how they have been in many countries trying to raise awareness. We go to Brazil and we see the children, like in many other countries, trying to plant trees to try to identify what are the issues related to the importance of respecting nature, not only for the future, but for the communities and their culture. In Samoa, the same, looking at how the Eco-Toa project is really seeing how the problem of climate change and violence needs to be taught in the schools. And something that we have been trying to address with the report of the SRSG to the General Assembly, because it's not only the moment of raising awareness to the General Assembly, but then it's going and working with the national governments and to ensure that this is paid attention at that local level. So in this context, we are trying to ensure that we can promote a culture of children's participation. And you might be thinking within national governments, but within the UN. And that's something we are trying to do by taking the time, and it's not easy when I'm having these discussions in many of the rooms of the United Nations. You can see some faces looking at how difficult it is to ensure children's participation, who they represent, how you can protect their voices, but it's possible. It's something that we cannot just think that because it's impossible we cannot do it. And for this reason, the SRSG takes the time to speak to the children before she prepares her reports to the General Assembly or to the Human Rights Council, and then she takes the time to pass those messages and to report back to children after those reports are made. And that's something that we are trying to also expand to all the partners in the UN. But we will never be able to manage to do it if we don't have those examples that you have been sharing with us in such a courage manner. So I just want to end it, as Paloma have said, we need you, we need more of you, and we are very proud of you, and we hope we can continue accompany you. But it's not us who is passing any kind of major message. We are trying to help and to support the message that you yourself are passing in many countries. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pablo. And distinguished audience, we have gone 17 or 20 minutes beyond the time, so thank you so much for continuing here with us. After the guest speakers, we wanted to open the floor for any comment or any message that you would like to share with our young leaders here. So if you still allow us to do that, because of time, I would like to open the floor, and if you can share very brief messages with our young leaders.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to echo your words that when I grow up too, I want to be like this too. They're just amazing. They're amazing. They speak with passion. They know what they're talking about. My ask, because they have asks too, is for governments to provide that framework, policy and legal framework, in order to receive what these young people are saying. Because without that policy framework and legal framework, we will be talking. But you guys are great. I wish I came from your countries.
My name is Bishop Ruben Moise Senior. I am the chairman for the New York Interfaith Peace March and the president of Mount Sinai Worship Center in Brooklyn, and also from Haiti. Thank you so much for inviting us, and I echo and encourage all the speakers, particularly the young people, their hard works they're doing. I came from Haiti, and I experienced it, and I saw the injustice, the crimes, pains, the misery the children's endured in Haiti. And I know that it's happened in many other countries as well. And I feel that it is very important that we adore to pay attention to the children, to listen to them, because they have a message. If we give them the time to listen we can learn from them, and we can help them to become a better children today and better adult, a better law-abiding citizen for tomorrow. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. And I think that with those two messages, we are going to close here. And again, thank you so much, everyone. And look for more invitations like this. Thank you. Have a good day.